I stand before you today fully awake, but I dream the dream of Jesus, of Muhammad, of Gandhi, of Martin Luther King, and every spiritual and religious leader have come before us. I have a dream.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight on Faith, which is presented by the Edinburgh Interfaith Association. Today I'm joined by the original co-facilitators of the Happy Café of Edinburgh. The Happy Café of Edinburgh is one of a network of 175,000 people worldwide who practice something called Action for Happiness. We're going to learn a lot more about that today, but it is literally in 180 countries all over the world. So my two guests today, Simon and Ros, are going to share with us some of the benefits psychologically and physically from programs such as practicing happiness. So Ros, may I start with you? Tell me, in your own experience, how have you benefited from the Happy Cafe?
The question was, how have I benefited? Right, how I've benefited is that I very much wanted an opportunity to put the precepts, the tenets behind it into action and to see whether it does really make a difference, particularly for people who currently, like myself previously, are suffering from mental health issues. My background is that I've had a lot of mental health problems, specifically with very bad depression, anxiety, and I've had to develop a lot of strategies in order not to happen again. And almost I wish that there'd been a Happy Cafe when I was suffering from depression. I think it would have helped me a lot. It's very, very isolating, having depression. You feel like you're on your own. And there's a shame factor. Doesn't matter what anybody else, there's a shame factor. Some of the people that have come to our Happy Cafe have obviously been in a similar state. And I would say without exception, have got something out of a meeting, whether it's a small something or a big something. And it's a safe space. It's a confidential space. That's really important. One of the primary things that we do is talking to each other in groups of 2 or 3. That gives you a more safe space, and then if you want to share to a larger group, you can, but our format that's entirely down to you.
Thank you, Ros. One of the things that I most appreciate about Action for Happiness and the Happy Cafe is that it gives you a framework for developing happiness in your life. And one of the keys is something called the 10 Keys to Happier Living, Great Dream. Yes, indeed. Can you, Simon, tell us a little bit about how Great Dream and other aspects of the Happy Cafe has helped you psychologically and physically?
Yeah, so the idea behind Great Dream and a lot of the material that Action for Happiness kind of push out is all it's very kind of, there's a lot of complexity and thought behind it, and in some respects research, but the framework that they give you is a nice simple tool, and Great Dream is one of those. So it stands for giving, relating, exercising, awareness, and trying out, which are things that are out there and relational. So it's about building relationships in the outside world. And then Dream stands for, and I'm not remembering this, by the way, I have it in front of me in case you think I can remember this off the top of my head. So Dream stands for direction, resilience, emotions, acceptance, and meaning, as ably demonstrated by Ros there. So these are just really nice, simple anchors that help you think about things that you can do, so the actions that you can take. So I think one of the things that I have found helpful in my life and has benefited me is meditation. So whether you could kind of relate that to awareness or maybe resilience, but I would say meditation has been so, I would even use the word transformational in my life. It's given me that real anchor, and I guess to some extent it's what I would describe for me as an element of spirituality. You know, it really helps me relate both to myself internally, but also more to the outside world, and just be more present and more mindful when life throws all that life throws at you, adversity and challenges. And I think, you know, you're just better able to be there for others as well as yourself.
I know that the Happy Cafe has been meeting at a yoga studio, Santosa, in Leith, and one of my favorite schools of yoga is called laughing yoga. And I don't know if you or Roz have had this experience, but occasionally I'll have a really funny dream, and I wake up having laughed, and I'm continuing to laugh in the early morning. And I think that has great physical effect when you're able to laugh and release. But sadly, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, many folks in Edinburgh are very worried about their future. They're worried about their jobs, their family, their income. How do you think, Simon, programs such as the Happy Cafe can potentially help them through this very difficult time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Joe, and you know, I think it can be in a number of ways, but broadly speaking, it's about connection. And I know that sounds a bit odd when you think about the fact that we physically can't be together at the moment. But one of the things that, you know, we have created is a community. So we have a mailing list, you know, people that we regularly reach out to. We have a Facebook page where people, you know, frequently post, you know, inspirational stories or items. And one of the other things that, you know, I've been involved with, so my journey with Happy Cafe has changed a little bit. So at the turn of the year, I said to Ros that I wanted to kind of do some perhaps more in-depth work with Action for Happiness. So put myself forward to lead one of their programs, their 8-week programs. But right at the point that I got approval to be a course leader, we had COVID-19. Yeah. But that myself and about 20 other people all contacted Action for Happiness and said, have you considered developing a program for the online space? And as it happens, they hadn't, but they immediately got to work to bring a community together. So I was, you know, delighted and thrilled to be asked to be part of that group. And so, the online program, it's still called the 10 Keys group, linked in with the 10 Keys to Happier Living, is being gradually rolled out now by Action for Happiness. So although we are in this lockdown situation, we are still able to come together through technology and just have that connectedness. It's not going to be quite the same experience, but a lot of the key themes will be there. The tune in, the virtual hugs, and the ability to connect and take action for ourselves and out into the wider community.
I think you're right. It's about communication, really, with one another, despite the fact we can't meet face to face. My morning began first text message from my son, who stays in Leith, 10 minutes away, who I haven't seen in 9 weeks. And it was simply 3 words: I love Papa.
Oh.
And
Peaceful.
you know, Simon, even though we can't physically be together, those little things during this difficult time give us the energy, if you will, the happiness to go on. Ros, you mentioned bouts with depression, and most of us have had periods of depression, either minor or major. And I was wondering if you could tell me about any challenge that you've had in your life and how faith or spirituality or happiness helped you to overcome that challenge.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that I've given a lot of thought to, and I have sort of struggled to come up with something tangible that comprehensible that makes sense. I think one thing I've just thought, I'll just say it anyway. I lost my dad at quite an early age, and that pretty much threw me into a completely different world. I think when you're really young, you live in that world and that's your world, and death is just simply not there. And it just threw me, and I was in a weird space for a long time. And that was in the early 70s, when a lot of Eastern religion was coming to the fore. And I think that's played a large part in my developing spirituality, is that convergence, or two streams, quite different in some ways, between the Western faith viewpoint and an Eastern. And I came across Tibetan Book of the Dead, which was the hippie Bible of its times in the early 70s. And funnily enough, that did help me. It helped me get through the death of my father, based on a very different sort of way of looking at life, but having at its heart, I think, something that embraces pretty much all religions, which is that there is some form of existence after death. And I think that is one of the primary elements that buoys me up, because I have lost a lot of people in my life, and I lost my brother last year at the same time that Simon and me were developing the Happy Café. And it's been really difficult. It's been really difficult. And one of the things that holds me, and is that I do have a belief in life after death, and that I'm just going to stick with that. It doesn't belong to religion. It belongs to a sort of just a belief system that there is some form of existence after death.
Right. It's your own belief system, which I think is very profound. And how about yourself, Simon? Have you had a challenge? I know you've been in transport for many years before you've moved to the world of information technology, and there's lots of challenges in the transport world, especially today. How have you had experience with these challenges and used spirituality or faith to help you move forward?
So you know, like Ros, I thought quite long and deeply about that question, and I guess, like most people, I've had adversity in my life. I've come through challenges with mental health issues. I guess there was a period in my life where I kind of, I guess you could say, lost my way a bit. I had periods where I kind of dismissed the idea of love and having a partner and connection, and I think through spirituality, through meditation, you know, that became my anchor. I knew I needed something to help me come through a period of darkness, if you will, and meditation came to me. I studied Vedic meditation, so I have my chant. I do mindfulness on a regular basis. But I also think meeting Lee, my husband, and you know, Lee's family is very spiritual, and you know, there's been not deep studies, but studies of Buddhism, and just an appreciation of some of the Eastern philosophies that Ros talked about. So yeah, for me, I think a belief in humanity, a belief in an energy, a life force between us, and this anchor for me around meditation has really been transformational and helped me come through some adverse times in life.
What a great message for our viewers today, because they are suffering mightily during the COVID-19 pandemic with issues such as depression. So thank you both for being so open and honest about that. I realize that your patron is His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and he said that happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions. And may I just, on behalf of the Edinburgh Interfaith Association, thank you sincerely for promoting, developing, delivering action for happiness in our community to make our city a happier place where we all wish to live. And for those of you that are viewing this program, you can find out more about Action for Happiness by visiting www.actionforhappiness.org. That's www.actionforhappiness.org. And I just get to close by saying, both of you have made me very happy today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Joe.
Keep
Pleasure.
the faith. Bye.
Cheerio.
Cheers.